You step inside a stone house that never truly forgets the cold, and for a moment you realize that warmth here is not something you feel all at once, but something you slowly gather piece by piece as the evening settles in around you. The heavy wooden door closing behind with a soft, dull sound that seems to disappear into the thick stone walls, and the air inside feels only slightly different from the outside, just a few degrees warmer, perhaps somewhere in the low 40s, as if the house itself is still holding on to the memory of the day's chill. And you notice how the dim light flickers gently from a small fire across the room, not bright enough to fill the space, but just enough to give shape to the quiet interior. And as your eyes adjust, you begin to see the details that define this place. The uneven texture of the stone walls, the low wooden beams overhead, the packed earth floor that feels firm beneath your feet. And everything here seems to move at a slower pace, as if time itself has settled into a softer rhythm. And you take a step further inside, feeling the cold follow you, clinging lightly to your clothing, brushing against your hands, settling into your sleeves. And there is no sudden relief from it. No sharp transition from cold to warm. Only a gradual shift that happens so slowly you almost do not notice it. And somewhere nearby you hear the quiet crackle of burning wood, steady and unhurried. And it becomes clear that this small fire is not meant to overpower the cold, but simply to live alongside it, offering just enough warmth to make the night bearable. And as you stand there, you begin to understand that in a house like this, warmth is not a single source but a collection of small, careful choices, each one adding a little more comfort, each one working quietly in the background. And you move closer to the center of the room, where the fire sits low in its hearth, the flames rising only a few inches, their glow soft and steady, casting long shadows that stretch gently across the stone surfaces. And even here, just a few feet away, the warmth is subtle, not intense, more like a gentle presence than a strong heat, and you can feel it, slowly reaching you, touching your hands first, then your face, while the rest of the room remains cool and still. And there is a quiet understanding in this space that nothing happens quickly, not the warming of the air, not the passing of time, not even the settling of the night. And as you take another slow breath, you begin to notice how the house holds everything in place, the silence, the warmth, the cold, all of it layered together in a way that feels steady and calm. And without thinking, you adjust your position just slightly closer to the fire, not because it is cold enough to force you, but because it simply feels right. And this small movement becomes part of a larger rhythm, a quiet, repeated pattern of shifting, adjusting, settling, as the evening gently unfolds around you. And in this moment, with the faint glow of firelight and the quiet weight of stone surrounding you, you begin to step into a slower world, one where warmth is never sudden, never overwhelming, but always patient, always gradual, always something you learn to notice over time. As you remain standing near the small fire, you begin to notice something that at first feels almost invisible, the way the cold is not only around you but quietly held within the walls themselves, as if the stone has absorbed hours, even days, of chill and now releases it slowly back into the room. And when you reach out, almost without thinking, your fingers hover close to the surface of the wall, and even without touching it you can sense the coolness radiating outward, steady and constant. And if you were to place your hand against it, you would feel that same quiet cold pressing gently into your skin, not sharp or biting, but persistent, unmoving. And it becomes clear that these walls are not barriers against the weather outside, but extensions of it, holding the outside world just a few inches away. And the air inside the room feels caught between two influences, the faint warmth of the fire and the deep, settled cold of the stone, and neither one fully wins. Instead they meet, somewhere in the middle, creating a space that is never truly warm, but no longer fully cold. And as you stand there, you begin to understand that warmth here is not about changing the entire room, but about finding small pockets within it, places where the balance shifts just enough to feel comfortable. And you notice how the temperature changes even with a small step, how moving a foot closer to the fire brings a subtle difference, just a few degrees, perhaps from the low 40s to somewhere closer to 50. And that small change feels meaningful, enough to soften the chill on your hands, enough to ease the tightness in your shoulders. And yet if you step back again, even by a foot or two, the warmth fades just as gently as it appeared, returning you to that steady coolness that fills most of the space. And there is a quiet rhythm in this, a constant awareness of position and distance, of where warmth gathers and where it disappears, and you begin to move with that awareness, not in large steps, but in small adjustments, shifting your weight, turning slightly, finding the angle where the fire's heat reaches you just a little more directly, and you notice how the ceiling above seems to hold a different kind of air, slightly warmer, as heat slowly rises and lingers near the beams, while the lower part of the room, closer to the floor, remains cooler, and this creates a gentle layering of temperature, one that you can feel as you breathe, the air just above your shoulders carrying a faint trace of warmth, while the air near your hands and legs stays cool and still, and even the fire itself does not rush. It burns slowly, the flames low and controlled, the wood giving off heat in a steady, measured way, never too much, never too fast, and you can hear it in the quiet crackling, a soft, repeating sound that blends into the silence of the room, and over time, that sound becomes part of the background, something you no longer focus on directly, but something that shapes the atmosphere all the same. And as the minutes pass, you begin to notice how your body responds, how the initial chill begins to soften, not because the room has changed, but because you have, your skin adjusting, your breathing slowing, your muscles relaxing just slightly, and it feels less like escaping the cold and more like learning how to exist within it. And you realize that this house does not offer instant comfort, but instead invites a slower process, one where warmth is found in layers, in proximity, in patience. And as you remain near the fire, with the stone walls quietly surrounding you, holding their steady coolness, you begin to settle into that process, no longer searching for a sudden change, but simply allowing the balance between cold and warmth to unfold in its own quiet, unhurried way. You begin to notice that the small fire in front of you is not simply a source of heat, but a quiet center of attention, something that gently shapes the entire room without ever trying to dominate it. And as you watch the flames move in slow, careful patterns, rising just a few inches before folding back into themselves, you realize that this fire is built to last rather than to impress. Its purpose not to create sudden warmth, but to maintain a steady presence over time, and the wood within it burns slowly, each piece placed with intention so that it releases heat in a controlled and measured way. And you can almost sense the rhythm of it, the way one log settles into glowing embers while another begins to catch, creating a continuous cycle that avoids both extremes, never too bright, never too dim. And as you lean slightly closer, you feel how the warmth reaches you in a narrow band, touching your hands first, then your face, while the rest of your body remains in that familiar coolness. And this contrast becomes part of the experience, a quiet balance between heat and cold that shifts gently depending on how you position yourself. And without thinking, you extend your hands a little closer to the fire, palms open, fingers relaxed, and you can feel the warmth building slowly, not in a sudden wave, but in a gradual increase, as if the heat is taking its time to reach you. And even the light from the fire seems to move with that same patience, flickering softly across the stone walls, creating shadows that stretch and shrink in slow motion. And there is no urgency here, no need to hurry or adjust anything too quickly, only the steady process of tending and waiting. And you notice how the arrangement of the wood matters, how each piece is placed close enough to share its heat with the others, allowing the fire to sustain itself without constant attention. And from time to time, a small shift happens within the hearth, a quiet settling of embers, a soft collapse of ash, and each of these small changes releases a brief pulse of warmth that fades just as gently as it arrives. And you begin to understand that this fire is not meant to fill the room with heat, but to create a reliable point of comfort, a place where warmth can always be found if you move close enough. And as you remain there, you start to adjust your position in small, almost unnoticeable ways, turning slightly so that the warmth reaches one side of your body more fully, then shifting again to balance it out. And these movements become part of a quiet routine, a natural response to the way the heat spreads unevenly through the space. And above you, the air continues to hold a slightly warmer layer, rising slowly from the fire and collecting near the wooden beams, while below, near your feet, The coolness remains steady and unchanged, and this gentle layering creates a sense of depth within the room, as if warmth and cold exist together in soft, overlapping layers rather than in sharp contrast. And the longer you stand here, the more familiar this balance becomes, your body no longer reacting to the cold with tension, but instead adapting to it, accepting it as part of the environment rather than something to resist. And the fire continues its quiet work, never rushing, never demanding attention, simply existing as a steady, reassuring presence. And in that presence, you begin to feel a subtle sense of ease, not because the room has become warm, but because you have learned how to find warmth within it, one small adjustment at a time, one careful moment after another, until the process itself becomes as natural as breathing, slow, steady, and unhurried. After a while, you begin to notice that the quiet rhythm of the fire is not something that simply continues on its own, but something that requires small, careful attention. And although it may appear steady, it is gently maintained through a series of simple actions that unfold over time. And you see how a nearby piece of wood has been set aside, not too close to the flames, but not too far either, resting in a place where it can slowly warm before being added. And this detail feels important, because placing cold wood directly into the fire would quiet the flames too much, lowering the heat instead of sustaining it. And so the process becomes gradual, thoughtful, and slow. And as you watch, you begin to understand that tending the fire is less about adding fuel and more about preserving balance, allowing the warmth to continue without interruption. And you can almost imagine the quiet motion of a hand reaching forward, not in a rush, but in a steady and familiar way, adjusting a piece of wood, shifting it slightly, giving the embers just enough room to breathe. And these movements are small, almost effortless, yet they shape the entire atmosphere of the room. And each time the fire is adjusted, the change is subtle, a slight increase in glow, a soft rise in warmth that spreads only a few feet before fading gently into the cooler air beyond. And you begin to notice how even a difference of a few degrees matters here, how the space near the fire might reach somewhere close to 50 or perhaps 55 degrees, while the rest of the room lingers in the mid-40s. And that difference, though small, creates a quiet sense of comfort when you remain close enough. And as you stand there, you find yourself drawn into the rhythm of these small adjustments, not actively tending the fire, but observing the way it lives and breathes within the room. And the soft crackle continues, never loud, never sharp, just a gentle background sound that repeats in slow intervals. And over time, that sound becomes steady, almost predictable, like a quiet pattern that you no longer need to focus on directly. And the light shifts in the same way, never still, but never sudden, moving slowly across the stone surfaces, touching one area, and then another, as if the fire itself is exploring the room at its own pace. And you begin to notice how this slow movement of light changes your sense of space, making the room feel both enclosed and open at the same time, enclosed by the heavy walls, yet open within the soft reach of the fire's glow. And as the minutes pass, your awareness of the cold continues to soften, not because it has disappeared, but because it has become part of a larger balance, something that exists alongside the warmth rather than opposing it. And your body continues to adjust, your hands no longer tense, your shoulders lowering slightly, your breathing settling into a slower rhythm that matches the steady pace of the fire. And there is a quiet reassurance in knowing that this process will continue, that the fire will be tended again when needed, that the warmth will return in small, gentle waves. And nothing here demands urgency or quick action. Everything unfolds in its own time, guided by simple, repeated movements that maintain a sense of calm and continuity. And as you remain near the hearth, surrounded by the steady presence of stone and the soft glow of firelight, you begin to feel how this slow, careful rhythm shapes not only the room, but also your experience within it, drawing you further into a world where warmth is never sudden, never overwhelming, but always something that grows gradually, one quiet moment at a time. As you continue to stand near the fire, you begin to notice that warmth is not only something created by the hearth, but something carried quietly on your own body, shaped by the layers of clothing that rest against your skin. And at first this feels like a small detail, something easy to overlook. Yet the longer you remain in the room, the more you realize how important these layers are, how they hold warmth close in a way the air itself cannot, and you become aware of the texture of the fabric around you, the weight of it, the way one layer rests gently over another, trapping small pockets of air that slowly warm with your body heat. And even though the air in the room remains cool, perhaps still in the mid-40s, the space within those layers begins to feel different, slightly warmer, more stable. And this creates a quiet contrast between the outside and the inside, between the air that touches your outer clothing and the warmth that remains just beneath it. And as you move your arms slightly, you can feel how the fabric shifts, how it settles again, keeping that warmth in place. And nothing here is tight or restrictive. Everything is loose enough to allow movement, yet close enough to keep the heat from escaping too quickly. And you begin to understand that this balance is intentional, that clothing is not meant to fight the cold directly, but to work alongside it, slowing it down, softening its effect, and allowing your body to adjust at its own pace. And as you remain near the fire, the outer layers begin to absorb a faint trace of warmth from the flames. And that warmth does not travel far, but it lingers in the fabric, creating a gentle buffer between you and the cooler air beyond. And over time, this layering effect becomes more noticeable, as if each piece of clothing adds a small, steady contribution to your comfort. And you can imagine how removing even one layer would shift that balance, how the cold would find its way in more easily, how the warmth you have gathered would begin to fade. And so everything remains in place, each layer doing its quiet work without drawing attention. And you notice how your hands, when brought close to your body, feel warmer than when they are extended into the open air. And this simple movement becomes another part of the rhythm, a natural response that does not require thought, only awareness. And as you lower your arms again, the cooler air touches your fingers, reminding you that warmth here is always something that must be maintained, never assumed. And yet there is no urgency in this process, no need to react quickly, only the slow and steady act of adjusting, of bringing your hands closer, of shifting your stance, of allowing your body to settle into a position that feels balanced. And even your breathing seems to follow this pattern, slow and even, each breath carrying a faint warmth that you can feel as it passes through your chest, adding to the quiet sense of comfort that builds gradually over time. And the fire continues its steady presence nearby, offering just enough heat to support this process without overwhelming it. And together, the layers of clothing and the gentle warmth of the hearth create a system that is simple yet effective, one that does not rely on any single source, but on the combination of many small elements, working together. And as you remain in this space, surrounded by stone, by quiet, by the soft glow of firelight, you begin to feel how these layers shape your experience, not by removing the cold entirely, but by allowing you to live within it more easily, more comfortably, until the difference between cold and warm becomes less sharp, more blended, more a part of the natural rhythm that carries you through the evening without effort or resistance. As the quiet rhythm of the room continues, you begin to notice that the warmest place is not fixed but shifts gently depending on where you stand and how you position yourself. And without needing to think about it too much, you find your body naturally moving closer to the hearth, not in large steps, but in small adjustments, a half step forward, a slight turn of your shoulders, a subtle shift of your feet. And each movement brings a barely noticeable change, just a few degrees of warmth, enough to soften the cool air that lingers around you. And you begin to understand that this process is not about finding a single perfect spot, but about staying within a range where the warmth can reach you in small, steady ways. And you notice how the air near the fire feels slightly different, not only warmer but softer, as if the chill has been eased just enough to create a sense of comfort without ever becoming heavy or overwhelming. And when you extend your hands toward the fire again, you feel that gentle warmth returning, spreading slowly across your fingers, your palms, your wrists, and it does not rush. It does not push the cold away, but instead coexists with it, creating a quiet balance that feels natural and steady. And you become aware of how your body responds to this balance, how you lean just slightly toward the fire without fully committing to the movement, keeping yourself within that narrow space where the warmth is present but not intense. And when you shift, even a little too far away, you can feel the difference immediately. the cooler air returning to your hands, your face, your shoulders, reminding you that warmth here is always something you remain close to rather than something that fills the entire room. And this awareness becomes part of your rhythm, a continuous, almost unnoticeable process of adjusting, of staying within reach of the fire's gentle heat. And as time passes, these adjustments become smaller and more precise, until they feel almost automatic, guided by sensation rather than thought. And you notice how the floor beneath you remains cool and firm, grounding you in the space, while the warmth stays higher, rising slowly from the hearth and lingering in the air just above waist level. And this creates a quiet layering that you can feel as you stand, your feet in the coolness, your upper body in the softer warmth. And you may find yourself shifting your weight from one foot to the other, not out of discomfort, but as part of this natural adaptation, a way of keeping your body engaged with the subtle changes in temperature. And the fire continues its steady movement, the flames low and controlled, never reaching too far, never pulling your attention away from the calm that fills the room. And the light it gives off moves gently across the stone, creating patterns that change so slowly they almost feel still. And you begin to notice how your breathing has settled into a slower pace, how each breath feels even and quiet, matching the rhythm of the fire. And there is a sense of ease in this, a quiet understanding that nothing needs to happen quickly, that warmth will continue to build in small, gradual ways as long as you remain within its reach. And as you stand there, close enough to feel the gentle heat, but not so close that it becomes overwhelming, you begin to feel how this balance shapes your entire experience, drawing you into a slower way of being, one where every movement is soft, every adjustment is small, and warmth is something you stay near, something you return to again and again, without effort, without urgency, simply as part of the quiet rhythm that carries you through the evening. As the evening continues to settle, you begin to notice how the room itself grows quieter, not because anything has stopped, but because everything has softened, the movements of the fire, the shifting of air, even your own presence within the space. And the light from the hearth becomes slightly dimmer, not suddenly, but in a gradual way that feels almost unnoticeable from one moment to the next. And this change brings with it a deeper sense of stillness, as if the house is slowly preparing for the long stretch of night ahead. And you become aware of how the edges of the room fade gently into shadow, the corners growing darker while the center remains softly lit, creating a calm and enclosed feeling that seems to draw you inward. And you notice how your attention shifts with the light, focusing less on the details of the walls and more on the immediate space around you, the area where the warmth still lingers. And as you remain there, you can feel the temperature holding steady, not rising, not falling, but maintaining that quiet balance that has been building throughout the evening. And this steadiness begins to influence your own rhythm, your breathing slower, your movements fewer, your thoughts quieter, and the fire continues its gentle work, the flames now smaller, closer to the embers, their glow softer and more constant. And from time to time a small flicker rises and falls, casting a brief shift in light that moves across your hands, your clothing, the floor beneath you, and then settles again, returning to that steady, low glow. And you begin to notice how the warmth has become more subtle, no longer something you actively seek, but something that is simply present, a background sensation that you carry with you as you stand or sit nearby. And even the coolness of the room feels different now, less sharp, more blended into the overall atmosphere, as if your body has adjusted fully to the environment, finding a comfortable balance within it. And you may find yourself sitting or leaning slightly, allowing your body to rest without losing that connection to the warmth. And in this position, the layers of clothing continue their quiet work, holding the heat close, while the fire provides just enough to maintain it. And the combination creates a sense of stability that feels calm and reliable. And outside, though you cannot see it directly, you can imagine the cold night continuing, the air growing cooler, the darkness deepening. Yet inside, the space remains unchanged in its quiet rhythm, protected not by strong barriers, but by this steady balance of small, consistent elements. And as the minutes pass, the sounds of the fire become even softer, the crackling less frequent, the movements of the flames more subtle, and this quieting of sound adds to the stillness that now fills the room. making it feel as though time itself has slowed, stretching gently, allowing each moment to linger a little longer than before. And you begin to feel how this slow passage of time affects you, how it draws you into a state of calm awareness where nothing demands your attention and everything simply exists in a soft, continuous flow, and the warmth, though gentle, remains steady, never disappearing, always present in small, quiet ways. And as you remain within this space, surrounded by stone, by shadow, by the soft glow of the fading fire, you begin to settle more deeply into the night, carried by the same slow rhythm that has guided the evening from the beginning, steady, quiet, and unhurried. As the quiet of the room deepens and the fire settles into a steady bed of glowing embers, you begin to feel a gentle shift toward rest, a natural transition that does not happen all at once, but unfolds slowly, one small action at a time, and you notice how the space around the hearth becomes less about standing and more about settling, about finding a place where your body can relax while still holding on to the warmth that has been carefully maintained. And nearby, a simple bed or sleeping space waits, not far from the fire, positioned close enough to benefit from its remaining heat, yet far enough to remain safe and still, and you move toward it in unhurried steps, feeling the cooler air brush lightly against you as you step away from the hearth. And for a moment the warmth fades slightly, but not completely, because it remains held within your layers of clothing, within your body, within the quiet rhythm you have already adapted to. And as you reach the bed, you notice the thickness of the blankets, the weight of them resting in soft folds, designed not to create heat, but to keep it from leaving. And when you sit down, the surface beneath you feels firm yet familiar, and you begin to arrange the blankets with slow, deliberate movements, pulling them closer, layering them over one another, ensuring that no space is left open where the cool air might slip through too easily, and each movement is calm, practiced, almost automatic, part of a routine that has been repeated many times before. And as you lower yourself further, you can feel the fabric of the blankets against your hands, your arms, your shoulders, and they carry a faint trace of warmth, not strong, but enough to create a gentle barrier between you and the cooler air that still fills the room. And once you are beneath them, the difference becomes clearer. The air trapped inside warming slowly, shaped by your own body heat, held in place by the weight and thickness of the layers above. And you can feel how the warmth builds gradually, not suddenly, but in a steady and reassuring way. And your movements become smaller now, adjusting slightly to settle more comfortably, pulling the blankets closer around your shoulders, tucking them gently at your sides, creating a space that feels enclosed yet soft. And even though the room itself remains cool, perhaps still in the mid-40s, the space within the blankets begins to feel warmer, closer to your own body temperature, creating a quiet contrast that makes the outside air feel distant, less immediate. And the sounds of the fire continue in the background, now softer than before, the occasional faint crackle blending into the stillness of the night. And the light it gives off reaches only faintly now, casting a dim glow that barely touches the edges of your surroundings. And this fading light signals the final transition of the evening, not an ending, but a gentle continuation into rest. And your breathing slows even further, becoming steady and even, matching the quiet rhythm of the space around you. And you begin to notice how your body releases the last traces of tension, your shoulders relaxing, your hands resting still, your muscles settling into a comfortable stillness. And the warmth held within the blankets continues to grow slightly, enough to make the cold outside them feel less important, less present. And as you lie there, surrounded by layers that hold the warmth close, with the soft glow of embers nearby and the quiet weight of stone walls enclosing the space, you begin to feel fully settled into the night, carried gently by the same slow rhythm that has guided you from the moment you stepped inside, steady, calm, and unhurried. As the final moments of the evening settle fully into night, you remain beneath the layered blankets, feeling the quiet warmth that has slowly gathered around you. And the space inside these layers now feels steady and calm, holding the heat your body has created, keeping it close in a way that the open room never could. And beyond the edge of the blankets, the air remains cool and still, yet it no longer feels distant or uncomfortable. only part of the world outside your small, protected space, and the embers in the hearth continue their soft glow, now reduced to a gentle red light that pulses faintly with each quiet shift. And even though the flames are no longer visible, the warmth they created lingers in subtle ways, in the stones nearby, in the air just above the hearth, in the layers of your clothing and the blankets that surround you. And you can sense how everything in the room has reached a kind of balance. Nothing changing quickly, nothing demanding attention. Only a steady continuation of the rhythm that has guided the entire evening. And your breathing follows that same rhythm, slow and even, each breath warm as it moves through you, adding quietly to the comfort that is built over time. And your body feels heavier now, not with tension, but with rest, your muscles relaxed, your movements minimal, as if even small adjustments are no longer necessary. And the sounds of the room have softened almost completely, the fire now silent except for the occasional faint shift of ash, a sound so gentle it blends into the stillness. And the thick stone walls continue to hold the quiet around you, keeping the outside world at a distance. And though the night beyond may have grown colder, perhaps dropping closer to the low 30s, that change feels far away, unable to reach you in any direct way. And you begin to notice how the contrast between inside and outside has become less important, not because the cold has disappeared, but because you have fully settled into your place within it, finding warmth not by removing the cold, but by working gently alongside it. And the blankets hold that warmth steadily, the layers creating a small space where the temperature feels stable, closer to your own body. And within that space, everything feels calm, contained, and quiet. And as you rest there, you can sense how time moves differently now, slower, softer, each moment blending into the next without clear edges. And there is no need to measure it, no need to follow it, only to remain within it. And the steady presence of the stone walls, the fading warmth of the hearth, and the quiet layers around you all come together to create a feeling of continuity, as if this moment could stretch on without interruption. And your awareness begins to soften as well, your thoughts becoming quieter, less defined, fading gently into the background just like the light from the embers. And the warmth that surrounds you is no longer something you actively notice, but something you simply feel, steady and constant. And as you continue to rest, held within this calm and balanced space, the night carries on quietly around you, unchanged, unhurried, and you remain there, settled and still, where warmth and coolness exist together in a quiet harmony that requires nothing more from you than to simply remain, breathing slowly, resting fully, and allowing the gentle rhythm of the night to continue on its own.